Okay, well, it is officially 2:30, and that means it's time to start. So, welcome to Where's My Jetpack? Here's the issue. This is a sci-fi convention, right? So, ideally, we'd all be super...
You're in the wrong panel.
Oh, I'm sorry. This is your panel.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I was wondering what your
Today is...
Yeah.
See where this is going.
I am sorry, man. Today's been an off day. I am sorry. This is your panel.
Everybody's looking at you like, what?
I feel like I'm 2 hours. I'm 2 hours ahead.
It's okay.
That's
we're all having
right.
bad
Sorry, Peri. You go ahead.
That's okay. I was having fun. I thought he's going someplace with this.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
So, is digital art cheating? That's a little bit different of a topic, I think, here.
No kidding.
Great segue.
Yeah, great segue.
Right?
Is digital art cheating? I think that every person in this room is going to have a different opinion on that. And I know that some of the really older, entrenched artists are very much thinking that digital art is cheating. It's like, I had to learn to use pen and ink, and I had to use charcoal, and then people who are more reasonable view it as a tool, which I think is probably a more accurate summation. It's the same problem that photography had in the 60s when it started to become a mainstream art form. People were like, photography, that's not art, that's cheating, you know. So I think it's just as our technology advances, our tools are going to advance as well. Oh, let me introduce myself. My name is Peri Charlifu. I'm your artist guest of honor. I've been doing exclusively supporting myself through art for the last 36 years. I do both digital art and traditional art, iconography, charcoal, oil painting, that kind of thing, as well as pottery, which is where I really make my living at. You want to?
So my name is Victor Frost. This is not my panel, and I'm right now a owner of a production company, but for the last 10 years, I've been a professional audio engineer. As much as I love digital, I cut my teeth on cutting tape. So digital is fantastic. I love analog too.
Okay, well, for me, I'm Chris Butler, former artist guest of honor at LosCon, professional science and nature illustrator working at the Griffith Observatory. I do have physical artwork in the art show, and therefore you'll know I do love the traditional artwork. I am, however, also a sinner, meaning deeply into digital artwork and, in fact, 3D CG, which is the stuff I do up at Griffith. So, I'm ready to talk about both sides of it, what I like about it, what I'm ashamed about it, and we can get into that as we proceed.
Okay, so how many people are actually artists that use 3D programs and... you either are or you aren't. Raise your hands.
Yeah,
be proud of being an artist. Okay. I think that there's a lot of lack of education when it comes to 3D art and, digital art, particularly the 3D programs like Poser and Strata and that kind of thing. I think the general public has an idea that it's all push button. You load your program, you push a button, and it creates art. And those of us who actually use the programs know that's not the case. And just like a pencil, anybody can put down a drawing on a piece of paper. It's your level of training and your proficiency in that pencil that's going to make it either art or crap. And I think it's the same with digital art.
Yeah, I mean, one of the biggest things, like particularly since I specialize in audio and more video, you begin to see that the technology does to an extent make up for a lack of skill. Modern cameras, for YouTubers, for example, out there, modern cameras, the auto setting works phenomenally. You can get a fantastically better result if you know how to, for example, adjust f-stops or what ISO is or things like that. But the automatic function on cameras work really well, and you can see in a lot of videos that most of what they do is they point the camera at themselves, put it in auto mode, set record, and when they finally go to edit, it's just really simple cuts. It's not it's effective, but it does not exactly display a mastery of the tool, which is a big part of recognizing that it's a tool.
Yeah, I think from my standpoint, I actually put time in thinking about this one because I got mixed feelings and it bothers me. And we've got art collectors in the room. I know we have people who look at artwork and make those choices about the value of it and digital artwork and so forth. And I realized in my mind too, I'm stepping it down a notch. The more digital I see in it, I do evaluate it less. And I'm thinking, why is this bothering me? Because I know it's a tool. I've got the standard, it's just another tool speech ready. I can give it. I've done this a lot. It's like a confessional for an artist. I mean, I've done this speech to the priest before. But I think the difference, and you're talking about mastery, I think the difference is when you're farther and farther and farther removed from the artist, the person. That's what I look for in physical artwork, is the idea, the person of the artist. When I can see all those choices they're making, I feel more connected to it. Like a Van Gogh, right? We're going to be leaning in, say, I get it. I know the guy. I know what he's trying to do here. Whoever the person is, that's the selfish cheat. Not just what it looks like, but it's connecting with the artist.
And I think a lot of digital art has a tendency to be very much the same. The look is very much the same. There's not a lot of style involved. You know, a poser figure is a poser figure is a poser figure, no matter who's using it.
Yeah.
Well, I gotta come up against you on that because as you know, and I watch more YouTube videos than I consume than I create, and I think the same could be said for many people. But when I see So there is a software that is freely available, and is available for anybody who uses the Steam gaming platform. It's called Source Filmmaker, and you can use any of the 3D models in any of the games produced by Valve, as well as being able to bring ones in. And there is a distinction between a person who is just using that software, maybe hasn't put in the time to master it, and a person who understands the medium of Source Filmmaker. People who have gone in and who have understood how the lighting engine works, so they can make it so the textures on the models don't look like, oh, he just pulled this out of the library, but that they have gone in and they understood how to make it look as good as it possibly can. I don't think that's a whole lot different than refining a skill in, for example, shading. In physical artistry.
Well, and that's a good point, because I teach classes, and my beginning students, all their work looks very much the same. You can't go and necessarily differentiate one pencil drawing from another, because they all have that basic level of understanding and technique. And you're right, it's a level of mastery. The more you master the medium and your tools, the more of your own creativity and your own voice you can use in that piece.
Right. I've got a case study. In fact, you guys can lean in, see in the show, where I went digital, and it was a moment of fear on my part. I chickened on something, and it's both sides of the equation, where just what you'd kind of want from an artist, where I just had an idea. And it's all very straight from the artist idea. A hole in the ceiling, shaft of light, pile of debris in kind of a square chamber, lit by the reflected light, off the pile, on the bottom. Saw an old picture of a bombed out cathedral in World War II. That's where I got the idea. All right, now we're in the pure art world. I got about halfway through, and I started having to do light shading in the chamber. Then the fear hits, okay? And I start worrying about this. So I went into CG. I built the dumb chamber, I lit the thing, I turned on ray tracing, okay, like 7 bounces. Give me my light, let me see, are those walls lighter or darker? Dear God, they're going to be darker at the top because light's going to fail. Inverse square, the ceiling's farther from the walls at the bottom. All this stuff. I start worrying about that, and I used the tool, I rendered out an image, and it was actually really close. It was reasonably close. It gave me some instruction. But what I did was I backed off the digital at that point. I set it aside. I said, I've got my lessons. I checked myself with it, went back straight to traditional media, and finished it.
But that's no different than using a maquette.
Exactly. Yeah. I could have built a physical model and tested it. In this sense, it really is a tool, and it didn't get in the way. It wouldn't lessen the value if someone built the model first,
right?
Physically. So in that case, I don't feel too bad. When I use digital that way, I feel good. Now, here's where we get to sin now. Real sin. If I was in a situation where the computer had 8 settings, and one of them is cave, would you like a cave? Press A. Would you like a hole? Yeah. Or, God forbid, because they're getting more sophisticated, the computer suggests, you know what would make a nice painting? I'm thinking, you want Dutch masters? You want rule of thirds? No problem, we can give you that. Okay, give me a hole, give me a vertical sun, and give me light from that. Boom! There you are. Print. And it's just that we're not too far from the tools becoming that sophisticated.
Okay, we already have, not too far, we already have computers that are making original paintings and original music and original scripts.
Right.
The difference is that it is something there for you to use, and whether or not you're cheating depends on how you use it. Yeah. You can go into Source Filmmaker for just to stay with that one example, because that's for 3D modeling and things like that, animation. You can say, okay, I'm going to import the model of the Scout from Team Fortress 2 and the Portal gun from Portal, and we'll use this standard walk animation. You can do all that. You can cobble together all these pieces, and you don't even have to worry about how the legs are posing in terms of terrain. You can say, okay, the Scout is going to walk from point A to point B across X number of frames. That's how we're going to do it. And that is one way to do it. And I wouldn't even go so far as to say that's cheating, but it's definitely a baby's first animation sort of mentality to it. Or you can model the entire animation yourself. You can bring in your own models. You can do everything. You can turn on or off the different light settings as you want. Global lighting, go for it. But it's all a difference of how you use the tools.
I bet I know where we actually cross the line into cheating. It's not the tools, because God knows everything's possible now. It may be in how you represent it when it goes up.
That's true.
Maybe that's where we cross the line. Now, for me, all right, Cinema 4D, cave check. At what point is it appropriate for me to say, original concept by Chris Butler, cave check lighting by Cinema 4D, okay? At some point, because you could literally go to the point where it's appropriate to say this is now a collaboration between myself and Microsoft. If the concepts are coming from there, and that could be fine, it could be okay. It's what the picture looks like is all right. It's just where you folks who are looking at artwork and thinking about getting it, you ought to know or you're going to be pissed.
Yeah, and we kind of got it. We kind of got into this yesterday on Peri's panel yesterday about the ethics in art, and I brought up that a lot of musicians and artists, for example, sample a lot, and where is the ethical point of that? Now, you can. I'm a huge fan of sampled music, big dubstep fan, big fan of electronic music. I have no issues with samples personally. But if you're going out there and you're saying you made a rap beat and all you've done is you've taken the bass line from Staying Alive and put an 808 drum on top of it, I'm sorry, you really can't say that is an original thing done by you. Because 50% of it you pulled from somewhere else and the other 50% is an 808 preset. There's a line. Where that line is kind of a weird thing. Is where's the cheat?
Yeah, in the example I gave, should I have listed the picture of the bombed-out cathedral? Original geometry by Luftwaffe.
Cite your sources.
Yeah, exactly, citing sources. At what point, and this goes all the way back to the classics, right?
Oh, I got an idea I saw this girl in the street, and I did a painting of her in an inappropriate costume, whatever.
Norman Rockwell wasn't putting out credits for the guy. Oh, you see the guy who's the policeman's going to arrest the little boy running away from home? Oh, that guy. His name is Frank. He's down the hall. I saw him. And photography, for heaven's sakes, for reference, the Norman Rockwell. I was kind of upset when I learned he did photos and worked. I was kind of relieved. Okay.
Yeah.
There was that side of it, but there was also oh man, you mean that was posed? I was kind of hurt that way, but it's always been like this.
Sure.
Well, even back to the masters, the old masters.
Of course.
Their apprentices learned from copying their work.
Of course.
So,
And then their styles differentiate when
As-
you begin to
I mean-
see the mastery.
Right.
And I really cannot stress the importance of that process enough. I mean, when people have come up to me in conventions or just through just contacting me because of my work, and they say, "How can I learn how to edit video like you? How can I learn to edit audio like you do? How can I get this skill set that you have?" I'm like, okay, well, here's a link to a few radio dramas that are out there. Here's a link to some really good YouTube channels. Replicate their work.
Yeah.
Do your best to copy their work. And in the process, you will learn a lot about it, because just trying to get to that end result, having that benchmark to go after, if you don't know that, you will be forced to learn about it. You don't know 3-point lighting? You don't know how he got that lighting so nice and dramatic with a good fill on one side and the key and the background is distinguishable? Well, congratulations. You now need to go learn about 3-point lighting. And that is a great learning experience. But the difference is that if you have those tools readily available to you, because Source Filmmaker can and will set up 3-point lighting for you,
Yeah.
you're not learning.
Yeah.
And I think that's a great, another little check mark to put off of it. Is this cheating? Did the artist have to learn something to get to this point?
Good point. Actually, it's a two-stage question. The first one is, how can I learn to paint like you do? Or make a video? Or whatever the thing is. That's your first question. And then you learn to do that. And then the second question would be, how do I learn to make a painting that's not like you?
Exactly.
That's the second phase.
And I think education is important because you have to have, you have to know the elements and principles of design. You have to know why color works the way it does and why composition works the way it does. Mm-hmm. You have to be familiar with how light affects different materials. If it's going to be reflective, it's going to be absorbent. And just sticking a figure in a background without understanding why it's doing what it's doing can be difficult. And people can always tell. You can always tell if your art isn't trained, because you look at it and it's like, oh, there's obviously something wrong with this. It may be rendered really well. It may have all the components that you thought of, but it's not really art. It's just kind of a representation of the computer idea of what you wanted to say.
One fun thing on this that I remember all the way back from film school, because in the first week when I was in film school, everyone wanted to go out and make the most groundbreaking, exploratory, difficult thing, like I call it black frame.
They're still doing that.
They still do. But the instructors will come in, they'll step on you hard, and they say, you are now going to learn the rules first. Then you can break them.
I don't
after
remember,
you learn.
Yeah, and I don't remember who said it, but my brain is telling me that Leonardo da Vinci at one point said this, but my brain could be lying to me. Someone, let's just say it was Leonardo da Vinci. Leonardo da Vinci once said that before you can break the rules, you need to understand the rules. Yeah. Because otherwise, Who?
Paul Gauguin.
Paul Gauguin, sorry. So you need to understand the rules. And the idea of that is that without understanding the fundamentals, you can be breaking the rules in a wrong way. And this applies to literally any field. I've said this to friends of mine because I used to do street racing. And friends of mine who turned up in some hyper-tuned up Honda S2000, and they're saying, oh yeah, I'm going to go, and they plow basically right into a corner. A friend of mine hit a telephone pole because he didn't understand, adding more power, adding bigger brakes to a car will help the performance. But if you don't understand basic racing technique, how to find the base, physics, race technique, where's the basic line for the corner, all the power and all the brakes in the world isn't going to help you.
Now I know why you wanted to be on the jetpack. So that's going to be good stuff.
Yeah.
But no, it's actually true. You'll find artists who can use all of the various tools. They can go out there and not know why it isn't working. Have no idea because they didn't know how light works and things like this. They can push the buttons. The computer is generally not a counselor to solve all of your problems. You can create lighting situations that don't, maybe they work, but they don't feel right.
Or even if they do work, you can't defend your piece. If somebody asks you to explain your piece, you have no basic understanding of why it actually does work.
which is a pretty good litmus test for whether or not you've cheated. Can the artist explain their work?
So I guess is that the line between technique and luck? If you have a good piece, you have a good piece.
If you're spitballing it, let me tell you, that's dangerous. Just random number one, random number two, random number three. That looks okay, print it. If that's where we're at. No, that's not art. Yeah.
Because you have to be able to converse intelligently with your work. As somebody who's sold literally tens of thousands of pieces, people will ask you about your process. People will ask you about your technique, about your materials. And if you can't answer cogently and with some authority, they're going to know you're a fraud. And they won't take you seriously, and that will be the death of your career right there. If people stop taking you seriously, you're done.
Well, they want to get to know you. I'm saying the personal direct connection with that. When you're talking about art, that really is the connection. My God, 10,000-year-old paintings, whatever else. We still look at it and wonder, what was caveman Zog thinking? What does the zebra represent? Whatever else. If you can't connect with the person, it's an empty process. There's nothing to do with them.
I do between 35 and 45 shows a year, and most of those are mail-in shows. When I attend a show, my sales go up by about 40%. And that's only because I can sit and talk to people, and they can meet me, and they can understand what I'm doing, and they can kind of meet me as a person, as just opposed to just my art. And it's very important that you can converse intelligently. And if you're doing digital art, that's fine. Nobody's going to crucify you. But be able to say, yes, I use digital art, and this is my composition, and this is why this works, and on and like this. If you just say, well, I just did a bunch of stuff in the computer, they're just going to look at you like you're crazy. Even if the piece is good, they're just going to look at you like you don't know what you're doing.
Well, I mean, and I've definitely seen artists who have hit upon that lucky moment of creating something that was truly interesting. I met this guy once at a convention, and what he did was that he made glitch videos wherein they were made, and then they were intentionally broken in a very technical way. Things like removing keyframes and stuff from there, things that tell the decoder of the video how to process changes in the imagery, to the point that he would get these really interesting glitches where a face would move across and would leave a trail of damaged faces behind it. And I asked him, oh, wow, that's really interesting. How do you do that? He said, well, I kind of opened up the video in Notepad at one point and just started deleting chunks of, text of it, data out of the file. I'm like, so do you even know how this works?
Yeah.
And he's like, what is this, a thing?
Yeah, right.
I know.
Could you do it again is an important concept in mastery. Because if Robin Hood split the arrow once and he can't do it again, he's not Robin Hood.
It's just luck.
That's true.
And how fast you do it also.
Yeah. I mean, and that's one of the, I have not been arting as long as these two have. But I have been over
Arting, I like that.
Arting,
Arting, yeah.
It's great to verb a noun. But over time, I've learned my big problem is time efficiency. A lot of my work is very technical. There's a discrete plan on how to do it. But a lot of my problem is time efficiency. Just last week, I developed a system to automate the process of transcoding the video that my camera produces into something that my software can use. And that saves a lot of time. But part of being able to do that is understanding how the encoding and the video process works, how to set it up so I can still have the quality I want going through that. And, another part is what kind of edits feel good to people?
Yeah. So, there's a particular profession which I've only glancingly encountered working up at Griffith. We work with industry CG animators and all this. It's called shader writing, and there's that whole routine. And you can borrow shaders and things from other people, like Moana. Oh God, did I ever talk to somebody about water from Disney and Moana? Okay, water was his thing. And the interesting thing was they'll farm these things out to other people creatively who are not involved with that person at all. And that water looks like Frank, Oh, and that's those guys. You know,
I
yeah, exactly.
Looks like Frank,
you can start picking out these people who wrote the shaders, who I guess really qualify as true artists in their own, even if it's in effect. Dear God, it's what they think water should do. Okay? But at a certain point, it almost gets dishonest if somebody printed something out and said, "Hi, my name's Bert. I designed the ship, and look at this beautiful scene." Like, that's Frank's water, man. Yeah, those clouds, that's Beatrice. I know who that is, man.
I mean, the ship is okay.
The ship is
Frank's water.
Yeah, exactly, right. And they get into that, literally, from production to production to production. Oh, yeah. So if you ever see Black Sails, which is apparently some racy pirate drama, the water is Disney's. Just letting it out as a secret. It's Moana water, for what it's worth. So for me, honesty in presentation is huge. And if you're just doing rendering, it came out of a computer, there must be some graceful way to say so.
But I mean, a lot of that process, especially on projects so big.
Yeah.
I mean,
big names,
big wall of credits. I mean, you can't take a still from Moana and really say, and then have the list of the entire production team as the artists.
You could at least mention the team.
Yeah, the team.
Right.
That
something like that would be honest.
Yeah.
Yeah. Brought to you by the people of North America. Just based on my experience with film credits recently. The Edison phone book will now play.
It's actually kind of nice in a way. At least you can see everybody.
That's true.
I force my family whenever we go to the movie
to
sit through the credits, appreciate, witness them. You know,
it is someone's name off in the fourth column. It's the most important thing in the world.
I mean,
We
and then
scream for those people we know.
No, I mean, no, seriously. I would sit. There have been times that I've sat in on a movie, and even though me and my friends are particularly, we're kind of early on in our careers. I've been a little bit into it longer than they have, just because I started learning about audio so much younger than them. But there'll be times where we're sitting in a movie, and I'm like, oh shit, Richard's in that! God damn, I didn't know he was working for that. That's the project he couldn't tell me about.
Sure, that's true.
I mean, part of being able to identify an artist in the work is their own particular skill, which is developed through individual mastery. And
mastery of your technique and your materials will free you to be creative, because you're not expending any energy on trying to master the technique. Yeah. So you're not trying to remember how to shade. You already know how, so you can apply that information in a creative way. I mean, and that is very obvious with a lot of artists.
Have you two ever had that question asked to you? I don't know how you draw so fast. I don't know. You know,
if you've seen me throw, you know.
Yeah, throw. Yeah, exactly. In your case, I mean, all that kind of. Yeah, okay. We can make our art in a fraction of the time that it would take you to do it, but that time was invested in the hundreds, if not thousands, of hours that we've spent doing it before. It's a cumulative effect.
Right.
So the cheating aspect, should there be a definitive, and not to say that there could ever be a percentage effort, being able to be calculable, but what is a fundamental place that we should stop and say, okay, enough is enough.
Yeah. I know
where I'm going.
Yeah, I do.
If a monkey can do it, then it's not art.
Well, there was that monkey that took a really good selfie.
That's another panel. Simian art. We'll get into
Simian art, nice.
I will say there is a zone where suddenly my hackles go up, and it is not in borrowing technique. It is not in borrowing color. Everything else. It's in borrowing concept.
Yeah.
And if I can see that someone's piece is saying, this was my idea, but I see someone else, I know it's someone else's idea that's been re-rendered again. For me, that's the flinch point. I go, you didn't think of that. I don't care even how they illustrated it, technique. I know professionals will argue about this. Those watercolors, you learned that technique from so-and-so. When it goes to idea, for me, it's all the way at the center of why I lean in and look at a piece of art and try to look at it at all, is the idea of the artist. If it's not there, I feel like I'm being lied to.
Yeah, it's
But
that.
the concept is outside the scope of digital art.
Well, in a way, no, you're right.
What do you
say? The word concept, all the way out there, idea, is outside the specific of mechanical versus digital.
I'm not sure, because there are some concepts that fundamentally can only be executed as digital art.
True. Well, the intersection for me on that would be if digital made it possible or easy for you to take someone else's idea, where you couldn't have run with that, except you scanned a Norman Rockwell and you rotated the hue so it's 180 off, right? Okay. I'm sorry,
Yeah.
that we're sinning at that point.
Andy Warhol.
The concept of copy.
Yeah, oh no, and it can, of course, you could do it by many means. You're right to refocus me on that.
Yeah. One thing that one kind of art that I really like is I love remixes. On the way down here, I was listening to classical music dubstep.
I was afraid you were going to say Thomas Kincaid because this would go to violence. If it would, I'm sorry.
People are very polarized with
Thomas Kincaid.
It gets bad.
It gets weird. But I was listening to, and the last song I was listening to before I pulled into the Marriott parking lot was a dubstep remix of "In the Hall of the Mountain King" by Edvard Grieg, which is one of my favorite classical songs, and it was put into one of my favorite genres, dubstep. And there are remixes, because I just told YouTube, hey, just keep playing stuff while I'm driving, okay? There are remixes that I will not listen to because it just feels so shammy. It feels like there was so little effort. And then I've heard remixes like that one of the same caliber, and it was such a good one that I'm listening to it, and I'm feeling like I've got that. Oh wow, this is like bringing tears to my eyes. How good of a composition this is. And the concept in and of itself, in the Hall of the Mountain King dubstep, is a very simple concept, but the execution is the important bit. And it's fundamental to, I think it's fundamental to what is cheating and what's not.
Yeah, for me, it'd be how much Grieg is carrying the water for you. If I'm listening like, hey, that's Hall of the Mountain King. Well, it's really cool. Hold on, they're going to start smashing the hammers down at this point. I go, it's Grieg, and you're riding on coattails. At a certain point, the same thing. If I start doing Norman Rockwell space paintings out there, and you guys are looking and go, hey, that's like Norman Rockwell. At a certain point, I've got to be honest and say, okay, sign my name, comma, inspired by Norman Rockwell.
Well, you can't create art in a vacuum.
Yeah,
exactly. We're all inspired by something, and I think as long as you can put your own twist on it, there's nothing wrong with being inspired by another artist.
No, it's impossible to avoid.
Right, but I think you're right when you're talking about scanning a piece and then putting it in a computer and manipulating it that way. At that point, all you're doing is in kind of aping the artist because it's already been done.
Well, I mean, and then there are things like pictures created entirely of other pictures, and I don't mean mosaics. I mean, like, there's a picture I saw of an entire landscape where everything in it is a manipulated picture of. He played on Even Stevens. What the hell was his name? Oh, the guy who the dude who did the interview. Just do it. What the hell was his name? Shia LaBeouf. Thank you. The entire landscape was just manipulations of the same picture of Shia LaBeouf.
Wow, call the cops. This is bad news. Wow. Okay. Yeah, I was going to say. I thought Shia was a piece of work. Obviously, I've seen some collage work and things like that. They're composed of sub-ideas. And there you go to the technique of assembling them. Is it creative enough?
Well, actually, there's algorithms that you can use to do that. You just enter a new and it's not art anymore.
Yeah, I was about to say.
Procedurally generated content.
Yeah. Exactly. Any automated process, at that point, this artist draws the line, and I think a lot of us will.
So are then computers incapable of making art?
Oh, let's hope so. At least at this point.
I was going to say
Job security notwithstanding.
Yeah, absolutely. I can park cars, and I know that's where we're going. If the computer just thinks about what would be good today.
Well, I think then we get into the whole.
What is art?
Well, exactly, and the artificial intelligence and emotion and soul, and I don't want to get into that right now. we don't have enough time.
The computer doesn't do it though. The programmer that wrote the software does it.
No, sir.
Well-
No, sir. There is a computer out. There's a computer program right now, and all it does is 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, generates classical scores. One of its pieces was performed by the BBC Orchestra, and it was. I listened to it and I thought it was amazing.
But I'll guarantee you, a box of floppies didn't somehow reassemble into that software. Somebody wrote that software.
Well, yeah, somebody
But that same
served.
software can't choose a glass of wine.
But at a sufficient level of complexity, even the author of the software, I mean, particularly with the advent of things like neural networks, the author of the software, or the person who structured the initial formation of the network, at that point, once it's because neural networks grow, at some point they are sufficiently divorced from the internal workings of it that it is no longer has a definitive creator at that point.
When we get out into AI, at a certain point, the creator will say, "That's a piece of crap. Why did you do that?" to the computer, and
then the computer will kill
track.
And the computer will say, "Screw you! I like it. Who cares what you think?"
Right.
You know?
Well, if you're taking that concept one step further, you're not actually, then it's not actually the computer that's doing your work, it's the original person who wrote the program that's doing the work, and that's the person who should be credited.
But I think that's kind of unfair. Because, I mean, we're rapidly increasing the computational capacity and thus the power of artificial intelligence. At what point do we say the AI is the author?
Well, because when we start hurting its feelings if we take credit for its work.
I think the more apt thing is when we start feeling the creepy crawlies of saying that this is our work.
Yeah, no.
Well, some people have no compunction about stealing for the last 5,000 years. So.
Obviously. No, it's a business plan, as I understand it.
Yeah, it's a business plan.
Wealth extraction.
Yes.
You had a question?
To go back slightly, I use a lot of the assets from Dash 3D or Poser to do art. Right. And it's interesting how many people think that is cheating if I haven't done the polygonal modeling myself. And I'm thinking, though, that kind of relates to a photographer. A photographer doesn't grow the tree, and he doesn't sew the costume that the models wear.
Sure. Oh, we got Norman Rockwell. We already brought him up. Now we know the postman is really somebody who was standing there and was lit. That's Poser in physical form.
Yeah.
There's an idea, and then there's execution.
Yeah.
And again, you have to know why things work and how they work to make it a good composition. And because you can go ahead and pull all the different little bits of pre-generated information onto your screen, and if you don't know how to assemble it and know why light works in the way it does, it's not going to be good art. And I think that's what we're talking about, is the difference between just something that you do for fun or whatever, and something that's actually a relevant, good piece of art that you can be proud of and makes a statement. We talked about yesterday that artists have a tremendous power. We're very powerful members of our society, even though our society doesn't recognize that. We have the power to change people's minds. We have the power to manipulate people's emotions. And with that power, you have to be able to explain why that's happening. And just sticking a bunch of pre-made pieces of electronic gobbledygook on your screen isn't going to give you that same thing, that same effect.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
The end result will fundamentally betray your skill level.
Yeah.
I mean,
which is good.
Which is good.
As it should be.
Yeah.
Agreed.
What do you recommend for where to go to find some of the quote rules? Because one of the challenges I found as a digital artist, I was trying to learn a lot. I also use Vue to do landscapes, and it's every landscape book that I bought on composition. 3/4 of the book is how to draw clouds with charcoal. And I'm like, I put the cloud up, and there's a lot of art in choosing which cloud shader, and what kind of rendering do I do. But
take a class. The best way to do is take a class from somebody that knows what they're doing.
Always tell me to use pencils and charcoal, and I'm like,
use pencils and charcoal. Learn why things work the way they work.
Yeah.
You can transpose the same skills and the same concepts into any art form. It's not If you can paint well, you've usually started because you did a sketch. So learn from somebody that's competent, somebody that you can look at their art and say, oh, this person knows what they're talking about.
I mean, and if you have access to a massive asset library, I can totally understand why the idea is, okay, well, why should I bother going and doing that when I can just pull an asset from this library? I have friends who are, for example, I learned how to do Foley art as part of my education, and yeah, sure. Me and my friends could both go up on, go into our sound libraries that we purchase, or up on like Freesound or something like that, and pull a sound of, I don't know, a glass breaking or a flapping wing or something. But what if they don't have the perfect sound of a glass breaking or a bird flapping? Yeah. Well, I have friends who at that point will just settle for the closest thing they can find. But me and my other friends who know Foley, we know, okay, well, if we want a bird flapping, we can hang up a linen sheet on a clothesline and whap it around a little bit with a microphone near it to record that sound. It's not knowing the fundamentals limits the possibility of what you can do, even if you have a massive library of assets at your disposal.
I do my own texture work, and I do actually use Blender, but it's interesting because if somebody does a lot of their own CG model, suddenly that's art, and if somebody does have the perfect asset, like especially some of the Renderosity, competitions, they just really downvote you if you just assemble.
I think there's art in composition, in taking these different elements and putting them together, but.
Well, yeah, and lighting is a whole separate skill, and everything else. Yeah. No, we can't draw that line. That's not fair. Otherwise, you couldn't give credit to a movie director. They didn't make that change.
Yeah, exactly.
They didn't. That actor, he's born looking that way. Right? Hey, come on. At a certain point, choosing the actors, lighting the set, all that. No, there's still artwork there, of course. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think.
But if you want to learn about composition, if you want to learn why light does what it does and why shapes do what they do, if you want to learn the golden mean, if you want to learn anything like that, find a teacher that can teach you, because that is the best way of knowing. And reading books is fine, but you might get a book that the author's full of shit. Yeah. And then you spent 6 months reading this book and replicating crap, and then you realize it's like, thinking about it, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. So, and the best way to find a teacher is look at their work. You like a teacher, you like his work, then that's the teacher you go for. Because, it seems like an obvious thing to say, but it really is kind of counterintuitive when you're looking for teachers. I teach classes 2 days a week, and all my students are usually out of college and are proficient in their skills. So what I'm doing with them is fine-tuning the things that they need to know to make it as an artist. But, they pick up a lot of things from me technique-wise that they weren't taught in school. And it's simply because either their teachers didn't have that technical expertise, or they were focused on a different discipline. And if you want to learn about anything, it's best to just find a teacher. And in Los Angeles, I can't imagine you can't find teachers around every corner. So
yeah, and on most freeway off-ramps.
Check your local Denny's. Check your local Denny's. I'm sure there's probably some people waiting tables. So.
Sure. I find that the interesting thing, which it hits me too, is that there's a profusion of magic wands everywhere now. That kind of power is everywhere. A lot of people can start doing something that to them looks amazing without doing those other steps. And even, here I'm a CG guy. I take art classes, and when I take art classes, they say, all right, sure, whatever. You did a cover for National Geographic. I don't care. Here's a piece of paper, and here's a pencil. We're going to draw lines. We're going to work out proportions. I can take that stuff home, all right? I can import it into Poser, into whatever you're working with. It doesn't matter, but the skill will be here.
But how many times have you seen a Poser picture with figures that are completely out of proportion to the
backgrounds.
The backgrounds.
Yes.
Pieces are moving to the background.
Quite true.
It depends on, is it done on purpose.
No, there's
Yeah,
not.
okay, there you go.
It's you can
There you go.
Yeah.
Because from a cinematographic point of view, there are definitely times where you want the person to look larger than life. But if it's not done on purpose, then no. forget it.
No.
That's not the fault of the program, and the units it uses are just screwed up. Everyone's
Yeah.
doing it.
I've seen lots where you got a wide lens on the figure and a narrow, long lens on the background, and suddenly we've got medieval class perspective problems in the piece, and everyone gets a headache looking at it. What the hell is going on with this thing? The answer is they didn't know. And in that sense, the digital is actually not a service to artists; it's a disservice. They should have started with a piece of paper and a pencil and the proportions and the lessons. If they want to break the rules and say, all right, my perspective lines aren't going to work, that's my gig, that's what I'm about to do, that's fine. But if they don't even know, and they just pushed the buttons and got things from a couple programs, threw them into Photoshop and assembled them, they're not getting the effect they wanted.
That's why I hate post-work.
I do understand. Yeah, marrying elements together to make the point you wanted. For somebody, maybe they're very talented, but what they got, their starting point, was this very flashy, exciting mountain range, push 3, right? I've got a whole generation of digital space art out there for me, courtesy of Bryce.
Oh.
And I'm sorry for that. I'm embarrassed. Okay? But that's a phase I went through. I was so damn excited. Snow on Titan, I can do it.
And that's the thing. You get into that mode where it's all new and exciting, and you can see something instantly, and it's going to be, right there in front of you, and it's very appealing.
It is.
Especially if you sit down and you think about doing an oil painting, for instance, that's going to take several months to complete, where you can sit down at a computer and render it out on a large screen and see it in an hour.
Yeah, I guess it's a difference is, if Poser for you is a tool, great. If it's your drug of choice, no. Right?
If you feel like you need a shower after doing a piece of art, then you need to reanalyze why you're doing it and how you're doing it.
Yeah, quite true.
Well, if we can get people to that point that they get that they should probably take a shower after doing it, that'll be a step in and of itself.
It will be. And if your customer, however, needs to take a shower after looking at it, you've arrived.
What kind of art are we talking about?
No, the kind the kind that sells, brother. And I look for it in every show.
We've got about 15 minutes left, so we'll open up for questions.
Any tough harassment?
Yeah.
I wanted to point out something on the conversation you had about learning how to render clouds properly, and it feeds a little bit to what you were discussing. You can learn the proper techniques, but you are still going to have to compensate for what the program you are using is doing. Because
it's a tool.
Program renders things differently.
Well, and just like learning how to use pastels over charcoals. It's still a matter of just learning your tools, of learning the tool.
And part of learning how the tool works is learning how you can force it into submission.
Correct.
I do things with Sony Vegas that Sony Vegas was not meant to do. And a lot of that is, what is it called? Hiding your sins.
Yeah. Another word for that is mastery.
Right.
I prefer mastery, actually.
Yeah, that's it. hiding Sony Vegas does not like doing 3D type stuff. The best kind of 3D thing it can do is if you have a video, you can cant it a little bit in any given direction in 3D space. It does not like doing it. Yeah. But if you know how to do that, you can do really weird things like manually making a 3D video cube by canting 4 or 6 different layers of video.
Yeah.
That is it's like using a sledgehammer to put up a birdhouse or something. Yeah, that's it. You got to make the machine You got to make the machine submit.
Well, how many Bryce Mountains, my God, have I looked at? I know what Bryce Mountains look like. Everything else. If you started with that but didn't like it, and you rendered out and said, all right, that's our starting point. I'll accept some assistance from the tool. I will now force the snow to go into the ravines where I know that it is. I want alluvial fans at the bottom. That peak, yes, I'm sure the light would have hit it, but it looks stupid and it's distracting. Therefore, I'm shading it out. At that point, we're starting to see an artist step in here, and it's really a tool. If you just said, give me a mountain, at that point, digital is soon doing you a disservice, not a service, I think.
Yeah.
At that point, you're blindly following what the machine tells you to do.
Yeah, and I guess that's the distance. We're talking about, meeting the artist and all that. Even if you're not physically present, they lean in, they look, they're trying to meet you that way. And if it's just the machine, they don't want to meet the machine that way. I think it removes some of the value of it.
I'd love to meet a machine that way. I'd love it for machines to be able to create the, high caliber art, because that means there's something happening that we don't quite understand, and that there's something we don't understand. I'd love to understand it, but
You and I have very different ideas about machines.
Yes. Well, in a couple of years, there'll be machines up
Look,
here.
I grew up watching. One of the anime that I loved watching in my late teenage years, I think, was Ghost in the Shell.
Yes.
I am looking forward to being able to put my brain in a robot body and seeing robots that are indistinguishable from humans. So that is what I'm holding out. If I can make it to Brain in a Box, I'm okay.
I don't know. I grew up watching Terminator. Bad things happen.
Yeah, that's kind of my idea.
But dude, the T-1000.
Is that any better? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Kill me.
Sexy lady Terminator.
if you're a Terminator, not so much if you're a person. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Terminators aside, does anybody have any questions? Nope. So you know everything you need to know about rendering out.
You're never going to cheat with digital art.
Easily enough to go into the show and cause mayhem, which is a lot of fun after one of these. We amp you guys up. You're ready to dissect everything in the art show now. So
we were just talking about this.
yes, look at that. It's charlatan.
This art should be shaken.
Well, instead of using a Smith Corona typewriter, if I use a computer in Microsoft Word, am I cheating?
Yeah, you're not using that correction tape, are you?
Yeah.
If you are paying attention to what word underlines in blue. Because it's then when it starts making stylistic suggestions.
Yeah.
Because red, that's just spell check. That's just a shortcut to keep you from having to go into the dictionary. And blue, that's when it starts blurring the lines.
Well, when I swear at Microsoft and say, no, I want it that way,
Yep.
I'm the artist.
Exactly. Then that human process we're calling art, computers may step up to that at a certain point. The hands come off the keyboard and it tells you a story. At that point, the computer sits up here and will lecture on the nature of art. And by the way, there will be computers staring at them from the seats to make that discussion. We're not there yet. I don't think we'll be there for a while.
Oh, I'd like to think there'd be a conversation between the computers and us.
Indeed.
Perhaps Paintatron 9000 prefers the IBM school of painting rather than the Cisco school.
It's possible,
Take
but
that and run with it. That's a good idea.
terrible for you. All right.
I had a college professor absolutely convinced that
God, stop bringing
the dictionary was only 40,000 words, so I was always having to add words. And one really late night in the computer room, it said, "Oh, I haven't seen this word computer before," and I was so tired. I was like, "Oh, another word it doesn't have in, yes, add." And then it said, "Oh, I have this word computer. Didn't you mean computer?" And I go, "Well, yeah. Go ahead and change it." And I turned it in, and the instructor said, "Well, here you've misspelled computer again. And on page 2, you've misspelled it again." I'm like, "Oh, okay, I understand. It did them all." He's like, "Well, no, on page 15, here it is again." I'm like, "No, I get it. They're all going to be like that." And I explained what happened, and he goes, "No, that's not what happened." He says, "The mainframe is so upset that its evil human masters have forced it to do the work that we want it to do and not the work it wants to do, that when it saw your piece of fiction, it finally saw a way to strike back at its evil human masters." He was 100% serious. He was 100% serious.
Can I say
And
something?
100 years early.
Is there? Can I say something? Can I say something here? Are there writers in the room? Right.
At a
You're
sci-fi con? Are you
right.
nuts?
Well, okay. So
Of course.
let me scare any current writers and prospective writers. Literally anything you could possibly write has already been written. because there is a website wherein it has you've all heard the thing, you put infinite monkeys on infinite typewriters. That's been created. If you can search for any block of text, even complete gibberish, even things like, "Hi, this is Victor testing this thing out," and it will find in this incredible database where that text is in that infinite database. So literally anything you could possibly write has already been written.
This is a lawyer's dream.
I know, right?
That's fantastic. Copyright infringement lawyers got a lot of that.
Oh yeah, I mean it's incredible.
Well, we're still going to try.
I want a music version of that.
No. Yes.
Yeah.
A caveat to your point.
Yes.
Every concept may have been written, but the way they're combined has not.
Yeah, it has.
Well,
I mean, that's how it is. I mean, that's literally. I mean, you can put in any string of words, any jumble of characters, and it's in there. It's all in there.
No, but it's not. But he's saying it's not combined in a coherent story.
Well, if you
That's
put it in,
the
if you put an
difference.
entire story in the search field, you'll find it there.
well, I mean, eventually we'll get to maybe to the point where every combination of everything possible has ever been tried, and the answer then is
Oblivion.
No, actually, no. It's all the TV stories that we saw as kids being recycled into films. You just have to wait till everyone who remembers is dead,
Oh God!
and then just redo it.
I watched
And
MacGyver
hope it's
last night.
fresh.
The internet remembers.
I watched
Yeah,
MacGyver last night. The new version of MacGyver.
That sucks.
Are you kidding me? I thought it was good. Less whatchamacallit, mullets. Less mullets, more modern. I mean, I've always wondered what MacGyver would do in the presence of modern technology, and now I know. And it's kind of cool.
My salvation is ignorance. That's what I always go back to. I make it a point not to ever try to learn everything so that things are continuously new to me. I find that entertaining, if not universally informative.
A failing memory helps.
A failing memory is tremendous. There was a joy I saw at San Diego down at the zoo. They had an emu, apparently the stupidest bird on earth. They said, don't feel too sorry for him because every time I bring him out of his cage, he meets a world full of new people. So for me, that would be my only hope there. Maybe there aren't infinite possibilities, but because I see a relatively limited scope of them, they're fresh to me, and that's enough joy.
It's not used. It's new to you.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's my limited.
Well, thank you so much. I have another panel to get to, and I've got to go get my portfolio. So,
Outstanding. Thank you. This was fun.
Yeah.
Thank you
And
for a
deep.
lively panel.
Wow. Panels I've been on this time, everybody's digging in. I mean, we're not messing around.